Hello, and welcome, my friends. I hope you're doing well wherever you are. Whether you're here to unwind after a long day to immerse yourself in a new world, or simply because you enjoy the thrill of a good story, I'm so glad you decided to spend this time with me. Tonight, we'll dive into a collection of stories that explore the hidden dangers of our connected world, where the digital landscape can sometimes feel more like a trap than a bridge. These stories remind us how easy it is to lose control when we share too much and how quickly our lives can be invaded by those we least expect. So sit back, relax, and let your mind wander through these tales. Let's begin. Story 1. The Price of Being Seen. Chloe Davis had always loved photography. And even more than that, she loved sharing her life with others through her social media accounts. At 28, she had built a modest but loyal following on Instagram and Facebook. As a professional photographer living in Austin, Texas, her posts were carefully curated, showcasing her work travel photos and snippets of her everyday life. She often posted about her freelance assignments, her weekend adventures, and the occasional evening out with friends. Her followers appreciated her authenticity and her ability to capture beauty in the ordinary moments of life. Chloe thought she had mastered the art of balancing the public and private parts of her life. Her online presence was a reflection of her passion for photography and the lifestyle she had carefully crafted. But what she didn't realize was that every picture she posted, every status update she shared opened a door to her world that someone could easily step through, whether she liked it or not. It all began with a single photo. Chloe had spent the weekend hiking in the Texas Hill Country, and after capturing some stunning photos of the wildflowers, she posted one of her favorites on Instagram. The photo was of a small clearing in the woods, the sunlight filtering through the trees, casting dappled patterns on the ground. The caption read, "Sometimes the quiet places are the most beautiful, hiking nature." It was an innocent post, a snapshot of a peaceful moment that she thought was private enough. But then she started getting messages. At first they were just the usual likes and comments. Her followers were used to her posting travel and nature photos, and they appreciated the beauty in her work. But then, an unfamiliar name appeared in her inbox. John Smith. The message read, "I know that spot. I've hiked there before. It's beautiful, isn't it?" Chloe didn't think much of it at first. It was a popular trail after all. Many people had hiked there, and it was possible that John had simply recognized the location. But as the days passed, the messages became more frequent. They were friendly at first comments on her photos, questions about her trips, but then something started to feel off. John began to reference more personal things. He mentioned her favorite spots in the city, places she had only casually mentioned in a post weeks ago. He complimented the new art print she had just hung in her living room, something she hadn't shared publicly. Chloe felt a wave of unease wash over her. The more she thought about it, the more she realized that she had shared a lot more than she'd realized. Her followers knew what kind of coffee she liked, what time of day she usually took her walks, where she enjoyed spending her weekends. She'd given away pieces of her life, not realizing that each one of those small details could be used by someone else to form a picture of her life. But it wasn't until John sent her a message that night that Chloe began to feel the full weight of what she had done. "I saw you walking your dog in the park today." The message read, "You always walk the same route, right?" It's nice to see someone so consistent. Chloe felt a chill crawl up her spine. She had never shared that information on social media. She didn't mention where she walked her dog, or the exact time she took him out every morning. How did John know Chloe's heart raced as she closed her laptop? The familiar, comforting space of her home suddenly felt foreign and unsafe. She began to doubt every post, every shared detail. She started scrutinizing every comment, every message, wondering if someone was watching her every move. But John wasn't finished. The next morning, Chloe woke up to an email. It was a photo sent with no explanation, just a subject line that read, "I thought you'd like this." The image was a shot of her apartment building taken from a distance with her bedroom window clearly visible in the frame. Chloe's stomach dropped as she stared at the photo. The window in question was the one she always left open during the day to let in the fresh air. But how did John know which window was her? She had never posted a photo of the building, nor had she mentioned any details about her apartment to anyone online. She immediately went to her social media profiles and started deleting everything. Every photo, every status update, every location tag gone. She blocked John's account, hoping that would be the end of it, but the damage had already been done. As the days passed, Chloe began to feel a sense of paranoia that she couldn't shake. Every car that passed her apartment, every person she saw on her daily walk made her feel like they were watching her. She even started checking her locks twice before going to bed. The sense of privacy she once took for granted had been shattered. One evening after work, Chloe went out to meet a friend for dinner. When she returned home, she found a note waiting for her on the doorstep. It was short, typed on plain paper. "I've been watching you for a while. You're always so careful, but you can't hide from me forever." Her heart pounded in her chest as she realized that this wasn't just a random stalker. This was someone who had been paying attention to her every move, who had learned everything about her life by simply watching her posts. She felt exposed, vulnerable, and terrified. Chloe realized she couldn't go on like this. She couldn't live in fear every time she logged into social media. She couldn't keep hiding behind fake privacy settings and locked accounts. The cost of sharing had finally become too high. The next day, Chloe made a decision. She erased every account, every photo, every trace of herself from the online world. She deleted her Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter profiles. She would no longer be a part of a system that allowed strangers to peer into her life without her consent. She learned the hardest lesson of all. What you share online can be used against you. Social media, which had once felt like a tool for connection, had become a dangerous and invasive force that stripped away her sense of control. She understood now that privacy was something that had to be fiercely guarded. In the world of social media, once you share something, it's never truly yours again. And sometimes the most important thing you can do is simply not share at all. What happens when the world behind a screen isn't as safe as it seems? Our next story brings us deeper into the shadows of social media, where an invisible hand can shape your every move without you ever knowing. Let's see how things unfold next. Story 2. The Invisible Hand. Behind the screen. Liam Turner had always prided himself on keeping his personal life private. At 34 years old, a software engineer living in Denver, he understood the risks of oversharing on the internet. His friends and colleagues often joked about how secretive he was with his personal life. But Liam didn't mind. He thought of social media as a tool for connection, not a place for vulnerability. His Instagram was filled with snapshots of his travels, and his Facebook was a collection of professional accomplishments and thoughts on technology. No one knew much about his private life, and that was how he liked it. But in the digital age, privacy was a fragile thing, a thing that could be broken with just a few careless posts, even if you thought you had nothing to hide. It started innocently enough. Liam posted a picture from a weekend getaway to the mountains. The photo was taken from the balcony of a small cabin he had rented, showing a breathtaking view of the snow-capped peaks, the forest stretching endlessly in the distance. It was a quiet, peaceful moment, he captioned it. The mountains always put things into perspective. A simple post meant to share the beauty of the moment with his followers. He didn't think much of it. The picture got a few likes, a few comments, all positive. But then a strange comment appeared. "Nice view, Liam. You're staying at the Bear Ridge cabin, right? I've been there before. The view's even better when the sun sets." Liam was taken aback. The cabin was small, remote, and tucked away in the woods. He hadn't tagged it in his post, nor had he mentioned its name. It was the first time he had been to that cabin, and he hadn't shared the details with anyone. He thought it was just a coincidence, perhaps someone who had visited the area before. But the comment stayed with him. It wasn't just a casual remark. It felt like the person knew exactly where he had been. As days passed, the strange comments continued. They were never malicious, never threatening, but they were unsettling. Someone had been paying attention to his posts in a way that made him feel like his life was being watched. Not from the outside, but from within the very screen he had once trusted. The comments were always accurate. They mentioned places Liam had been, but had never shared publicly. They referenced things he had only told close friends, and at times even things he had never said aloud. One comment mentioned the coffee shop he frequented, noting that the barista had just started working there. Another comment was about his weekend runs, saying, "I noticed you're running a little later these days. Maybe you should switch it up a bit. The same route gets boring." Liam felt a knot tighten in his stomach. The worst part was that the person didn't seem to be asking questions. They were making observations that felt too personal. Someone was watching him, taking mental notes of his every move. Liam decided to take action. He tightened the privacy settings on his social media accounts. He stopped posting as frequently, and when he did, he made sure there was little personal detail to be found. But the comments didn't stop. They simply became more cryptic. One night after deleting the comment section on one of his photos, Liam sat down to catch up on some work. His phone buzzed with a notification, and he picked it up without thinking. It was a message from an unknown number, but it wasn't a text. It was a video. The video was short, just a few seconds long. In it, he could see himself walking down the street, his figure illuminated by the dim glow of street lights. He could tell it was a recent video. He had been walking home from the gym just a few hours ago. The video wasn't clear, but it was unmistakably him. No one else had been on that street at the time. The video stopped before anything else happened, but the unease in Liam's chest grew. He wasn't just being followed online. Someone was following him in real life, capturing moments from his day without him even knowing it. He immediately checked his social media accounts again, but the posts were still there and the comments had continued. "You've been walking on the quiet street, haven't you? It's a beautiful spot to clear your mind." One comment said, "The video you posted last week doesn't do the view. Justice, have you thought about taking a wider shot next time?" It was clear. Now this wasn't just about social media. Someone had been tracking his movements, both online and off every picture. Every status update, every seemingly harmless post had become a trail for someone to follow, piece by piece. It wasn't until a week later that things took a darker turn. Liam came home from work to find his door slightly ajar. He froze for a moment, his breath catching in his chest. He couldn't remember leaving the door unlocked. The apartment was eerily quiet. There were no signs of forced entry, no items out of place, but the sensation that someone had been inside was undeniable. He checked every room, every closet, but nothing seemed to be disturbed. The feeling of being watched had never been stronger. That night, Liam couldn't sleep. He kept imagining someone standing in the shadows of his apartment, watching him, waiting for the right moment to step forward. The next morning, a package arrived at his door. It was small, unmarked, and there was no return address. Hesitant, Liam opened it, finding inside a single photograph of himself. It was taken from a distance, but it was unmistakably him, sitting at his desk in his apartment. The photo was clear, the angle just right. The worst part was that the blinds in his apartment were partially closed in the photo, something Liam had always done to ensure privacy. Whoever had taken the picture knew exactly when to catch him, unawares. It was the moment Liam knew for sure. This wasn't just an online obsession. This was real. Someone had access to his life, to his most private moments, and was using that access to manipulate his world. The photos, the comments, the video, they were all pieces of a puzzle he didn't want to be a part of. He deleted all of his social media accounts. He changed his phone number and email. But no matter how many steps he took to regain control, the fear lingered. The invisible hand that had once lurked behind his screen now haunted every part of his life. The lesson wasn't just about privacy. It was about the price you pay for being seen in the world of social media, where connection and exposure are seen as signs of success. There's an unseen cost, and sometimes the price of being noticed is more than you can bear. Sometimes the connections we think are harmless are the ones that pose the greatest risks. In our next story, the line between friendship and danger becomes so blurred, it's impossible to tell where one ends and the other begins. Let's take a closer look at how easy it is to misplace trust. Story 3. Haunted by what I shared. Emma Harris always prided herself on her ability to connect with people, and social media was the perfect platform for her to share her life with others. At 27 years old, she worked in marketing in Los Angeles, a job that required constant interaction with clients and staying up to date with trends on various social media platforms. Her Instagram was a carefully curated space where she showcased beautiful images of her travels, her friends, and her personal accomplishments. Emma believed in the power of sharing and connection. She had always been open about her life, posting everything from candid photos of her family gatherings to breathtaking views from the top of a mountain. It was important to her to show her followers the world through her lens, both the glamorous and the ordinary. But she had always been careful not to overshare, careful not to reveal too much, or so she thought. It all began with a weekend getaway. Emma had decided to take a break from the fast-paced life in LA and head to a quiet, secluded cabin in the hills of Northern California. It was a place that promised peace, tranquility, and time away from the constant buzz of her phone and notifications. She spent her days hiking, reading, and taking photos of the stunning landscape. The cabin was small but cozy, the kind of place where you could forget about the world for a little while. On the last night of her trip, Emma decided to capture the beauty of the cabin, nestled in the forest with the setting sun casting golden light across the trees. She posted the photo on Instagram, captioning it simply, "Finding peace in the quiet corners of the world." The photo was breathtaking, a perfect blend of nature's serenity and the cozy warmth of the cabin. She didn't think twice before hitting post. What happened next was something she couldn't have predicted. The comments started coming in fast. Most of them were from her usual followers, complimenting her photography and the beauty of the scene. But then one comment stood out. "I know that place," it said. "You're at the Redwood Retreat, right? I've been there before. The sunsets are incredible there." Emma paused. She had never tagged the location, nor had she mentioned it anywhere in her posts. She had kept the name of the cabin private, just a personal escape from the world. Yet this stranger seemed to know exactly where she was. She brushed it off, thinking it was just a coincidence, perhaps someone who had been there before. But the next day, another comment appeared, this time on a different photo. One of her sitting outside the cabin with a cup of tea in her hands. "You always choose the perfect spots to relax." "Emma," the comment read, "I know exactly how the morning light feels on your face. Don't you just love the way it shines through the trees in the early hours?" Emma felt a chill run down her spine. How did this person know that she had never shared anything that personal on social media? The comment was too specific, too intimate, and it made her realize that someone was paying much closer attention to her than she had imagined. She scrolled through the user's profile only to find it empty. No posts, no followers, no personal information, just the same generic picture of a landscape. She tried to ignore it, but the feeling of unease lingered. A few days later, Emma received a message in her inbox from the same account. This time it was a single sentence. "I hope you enjoyed the hike to the waterfall. I remember the view there so well." Emma's stomach dropped. She had posted a photo of herself near a waterfall during her trip, but she hadn't shared that information with anyone. No one had known about it except for her and the people she was with. How could this person have known? The messages kept coming. "It's a lovely town you visited. I've heard there's a little coffee shop just off the main street. They have the best pastries. Have you been?" The details were unsettling. Emma had gone to that coffee shop the morning before she left, but she hadn't shared that information with anyone. No one knew. How could they? The worst part was that Sarah's messages didn't feel like curiosity. They felt invasive. She knew things about Emma that only she should have known. Emma began to feel like a stranger was creeping into her private life, not through physical means, but through the digital world. She thought she had control over. Emma started to question everything. She tried to remember the details of every photo, every post, wondering if there was something she had missed. The thought of someone watching her so closely, of someone piecing together the details of her life without her knowledge, was terrifying. She tried to ignore it, to block Sarah from her mind, but it was no use. The sense of being watched only grew stronger. A week later, when Emma came home from work, she found an envelope waiting for her on her doorstep. It was plain unmarked, and there was no return address. Her heart raced as she opened it. Inside was a photograph, one she recognized immediately. It was a picture of her sitting outside the cabin, taken from a distance. The shot was clear, the angle just right, and it was unmistakably her. But what shook her the most was the fact that the blinds in the cabin were partially open in the photo. She had always made sure to close them for privacy. Whoever had taken this picture had been watching her, had known exactly when to take the shot. It was the moment Emma realized that this wasn't just an online obsession. This was real. Someone was following her, not just through her posts, but through her life. Someone had access to her private moments, and had used that access to violate her privacy. Emma immediately tightened the privacy settings on her social media, deleted the photos, and blocked Sarah. She even changed her phone number, hoping to break the connection. But no matter what she did, she couldn't shake the feeling that someone was still watching. It was as if her life had become a show for someone else's enjoyment, a show she never agreed to. The next morning, Emma received a package. It was small and unmarked, just like the previous one. Her hands shook as she opened it. Inside was another photograph. This time it was a picture of her standing on the balcony of the cabin looking out at the view. The photo was clear, too clear, and the worst part was that she had never shared this view with anyone. She had never taken a photo of it or posted about it. The realization hit her like a wave. It wasn't just the photos or the comments. This person had been following her in real life, observing her, capturing her moments in ways she couldn't escape. She had been vulnerable, had shared too much, and now she was paying the price. Emma didn't just delete her social media accounts. She deleted every trace of her online presence. She moved to a new apartment, changed her life in ways she never thought she would. The lesson was harsh, but clear. Not everything shared online is meant to be seen by the world. Sometimes keeping things to yourself is the only way to protect your peace. The world of social media wasn't always about connection. Sometimes it was about control. And once you let someone into your life, it's hard to get them out. In a world where we are constantly connected, it's easy to forget how much of ourselves we leave behind. But what if the attention you receive turns into something far darker? Our next story explores how a simple desire for recognition can lead to an unsettling obsession. Let's move forward. Story 4. Dragged deeper by attention. It was a quiet evening when Noah first noticed the comment. He had just posted a photo from his latest walk through the city. The picture showed the streetlights casting a soft glow over the wet pavement. The kind of moment you often miss if you're not paying attention. It was nothing spectacular, just an ordinary evening in Chicago. But when he glanced at his phone, the comment stood out like a red flag. I know that street. I walk there almost every evening. It wasn't just the familiarity of the place that bothered him. It was the strange certainty in the comment. The feeling that this person knew exactly where he had been. The user, going by the name Anna, had a profile with no personal information. Just a few photos of random cityscapes and abstract art. Noah thought little of it at first. People comment on his photos all the time, and this was no different. But something gnawed at him. Why did Anna mention that street, the one he had only walked down a few times? It was a corner he liked to pass by when he wanted to clear his head. He never posted anything about it, never tagged it, never shared anything that would connect him to that specific place. Over the following weeks, the comments continued. At first, they were harmless, noticing the color of the sky or the light in a particular photograph. But then the comments began to hit closer to home. I saw you at that cafe last weekend. You always sit by the window, don't you? Noah had been to that cafe, but he hadn't shared it on social media. He hadn't even told anyone about it. How did Anna know? The more comments he received, the more uneasy he became. The comments started to reference more specific details of his life. You seem to like early morning walks. I bet the sunrise by the lake is beautiful from where you walk. He had walked by the lake just a few days before alone. No one else there. He had never mentioned it to anyone. Yet here was Anna commenting as if she had been there with him. He began to feel exposed, as if someone was peering into the private moments he never shared. He checked Anna's profile again, hoping to find some explanation. It was empty, just like the other random accounts that followed him. But this one was different. The comments weren't just random. They were targeted specific, and they felt too familiar. There was something eerie about them, as though Anna had been following him, not just online, but in real life. He decided to test it. The next time he went to a cafe, he didn't post anything. He didn't mention it online, and he didn't share anything about his plans. Yet when he checked his phone later, there was another comment. I hope you enjoyed the croissant at that cafe near the park, the one with the blue awning. The coffee there is perfect for a cold morning. Noah felt a growing sense of dread. How was this possible? Anna knew exactly where he was, what he was doing. Even when he hadn't shared any details, he decided to block her to close down the account she had followed him on. But it was too late. The fear had already settled in. The idea that someone had been watching him, tracking him without his knowledge, was terrifying. The feeling of being watched began to haunt him in the real world. He walked home from work trying to shake the sense of paranoia that had settled over him. It was a cold night and the streets were empty, but the feeling of being followed didn't go away. When he turned the corner onto his street, he saw a car parked a little too close to the curb. It wasn't unusual, but as he approached, he noticed that the car seemed to be watching him. The headlights were off. The windows rolled down just a little. Noah quickened his pace, trying to ignore the feeling that someone was waiting for him. The next day, the worst happened. He returned to his apartment after a long day, and when he opened the door, he immediately noticed something was wrong. The door had been left slightly ajar. He hadn't left it like that. He never left it like that. His heart raced as he stepped inside. Everything seemed to be in place, but the feeling that someone had been there, that someone had invaded his space, was overwhelming. He checked the apartment room by room, but found nothing missing. Nothing moved. Yet the air felt thick, heavy, as though someone had just walked out. That evening a package arrived. It was small, unmarked, and it didn't have a return address. Inside, he found a photo. It was of him taken from a distance, standing in front of the same cafe he had visited that morning. The photo wasn't clear, but it was unmistakably him. The angle was just right. The shot taken from across the street. Noah's stomach turned. How had someone gotten that close to him without him noticing? How had they taken that picture without him realizing it? The next few days were a blur of anxiety and fear. Noah couldn't shake the feeling that someone was always watching him. Always one step behind. He had never shared anything about his routine, never posted anything about his walks or his favorite cafes. Yet someone had been following him, tracking his every move, and he couldn't stop it. He blocked Anna from all of his accounts, but the fear didn't go away. It only grew stronger. One morning, Noah woke up to find another package waiting for him at his door. This time it wasn't a photo, it was a note. The message was simple, but it chilled him to the bone. I'm always watching, Noah. I see everything. Noah didn't feel safe in his own home anymore. He knew he had to leave. He deleted all of his social media accounts, changed his phone number, and moved to a different part of the city. But no matter how far he ran, the fear stayed with him. It followed him just as Anna had. He learned the hard way that online attention can be a dangerous thing. Sometimes sharing the smallest piece of your life can make you a target. And once you've been noticed, you can't undo the damage. Now that we've seen the dangers of unwanted attention, it's time to explore the uncomfortable reality of what happens when our privacy is shattered. In our next story, survival becomes the key as privacy becomes a luxury. Let's discover how far someone is willing to go to reclaim their life. Story 5. When privacy becomes survival. The quiet buzz of his phone broke the silence of the room as Jack sat back in his chair staring at the code on his screen. He'd been working for hours, fixing bugs in his latest freelance project. A programmer by trade. Jack found comfort in the rhythm of his work, the way lines of code transformed into something tangible. The digital world was his domain, but in recent weeks, something had started to feel off. It wasn't the work itself. It was the growing sense of unease he had been carrying, the feeling that his privacy had been slowly eroded by the very platforms he used for his work. Jack had always been careful about the way he used social media. He wasn't the type to post personal updates or overshare details about his life. He kept things professional, sharing his achievements, snippets of his work, and the occasional cityscape shot on his Instagram. But lately he had been getting more and more attention. At first it seemed harmless. A few new followers here and there, some comments on his posts from people he didn't know. But then it escalated. It began with a simple tweet about finishing a particularly challenging project. It was just a throwaway comment, a way for Jack to mark the occasion. Another project, downtime to relax. He had written with a picture of his computer screen showing the lines of code he had just completed. The response was almost immediate. People started liking the tweet, offering congratulations and sharing their own experiences with similar projects. Jack was used to this. But then there was one comment that caught his eye. "You've been working on this for days. I saw you at the coffee shop near your place last week. You looked like you needed a break," the comment read. Jack paused. He had been at the coffee shop a week ago, but he hadn't mentioned it to anyone. He didn't tag the location, nor did he share anything about his whereabouts. How did this person know? At first he thought it was just a coincidence, someone who happened to see him at the cafe. But then the comments kept coming, and they were starting to feel unnervingly personal. "I think I saw you at the park yesterday." One read, "You always sit under that big oak tree near the fountain. I've been there too." Jack couldn't shake the feeling that someone was paying way too much attention to his life. He started looking through the profile of the person commenting. The account was bare, with only a few posts. Landscapes, abstract art, and vague philosophical quotes. There was nothing to indicate who this person was, or how they could know so much about him. Then one evening, as Jack was heading home from work, he received another notification. It was a message from the same account, and it was even more specific than before. "I noticed you at the coffee shop again today, sitting by the window with your laptop. I could tell you were deep in thought, trying to work through something." Jack felt his blood run cold. He had been at that coffee shop earlier that day, but he hadn't posted anything about it. He hadn't told anyone he was going there. How did this person know? The next day, Jack decided to take action. He blocked the user, hoping that would be the end of it. But it wasn't. The messages kept coming. Now they were no longer just comments or messages on social media. They were showing up in his inbox. "I see you walk home every night from the subway." One message said, "You take the same route, the one by the small grocery store. It's a nice walk, isn't it?" Jack immediately checked his phone, and there it was. The account had sent him a direct message, a message that seemed to know more about his routine than he had ever shared. He didn't remember posting anything about his walk home, and yet someone was tracking his every move. The messages didn't stop. They grew more detailed, more invasive. "You should try the bakery on 7th Street tomorrow morning." One said, "I know you like their croissants. I saw you there last week." Jack couldn't take it anymore. His life was being invaded, his every move being tracked by someone who shouldn't have known anything about him. He decided to take a break from social media altogether. He turned off notifications, blocked the account, and tried to ignore the feeling of being watched. But it didn't stop there. One evening after a long day of work, Jack returned home to find something strange. His front door was ajar. He never left it unlocked. He stood there for a moment, frozen, his heart pounding in his chest. He slowly stepped inside, checking the locks, making sure everything was in place. Nothing seemed out of the ordinary, but the feeling of unease only grew stronger. The next morning, he woke up to find a small package on his doorstep. It was unmarked with no return address. Jack opened it slowly, his hands shaking. Inside was a photo. It was a picture of him taken from a distance, standing outside his apartment building. He didn't remember anyone taking the photo, and yet there was proof that someone had been watching him. The realization hit him hard. He had been tracked not just online, but in real life. Someone had followed him, watched him, and now had taken photos of him without his consent. He felt trapped, exposed. The line between his private life and the public world had blurred, and now he was paying the price. Jack tried to block the user again to delete his social media accounts, but it didn't matter. The damage was done. The fear didn't go away. Noah decided to take more drastic steps. He changed his phone number, moved to a new apartment, and cut ties with all his social media accounts. He hoped that would be enough to get away from the shadow that had been following him, but the paranoia lingered. He couldn't shake the feeling that someone was still watching him. The fear had followed him even when he thought he was safe. The privacy he once took for granted was now a distant memory. Jack had learned the hard way that social media, for all its connections and convenience, could be a dangerous place. It wasn't just about oversharing anymore. It was about how much control you were willing to give up, how much of your life you were willing to let others into. The price of attention, the attention he had so eagerly sought, had become his biggest nightmare. It was a lesson he would never forget, a lesson about the fragility of privacy in the digital age. The more we share, the less we keep. Our next story is a reminder that some moments are meant to be kept sacred. What happens when those moments are no longer yours to protect? Let's see how this journey unfolds. Story 6. Hidden Moments. Sacred Peace. Olivia was no stranger to the power of quiet. She had spent most of her 34 years seeking out moments of peace, carving out little pockets of solitude where she could recharge her spirit. A freelance graphic designer living in Portland, Oregon. She thrived on the flexibility that came with her job, but more than anything, she cherished the small, serene moments that connected her to the world around her. These moments were sacred. They were the kind of moments she would capture in her photos, sharing snippets of her life on social media. But her posts weren't the typical highlight reel of a life filled with perfect vacations and expensive meals. Instead, she posted the simple things, the way the morning light fell across the table as she sipped her coffee, the quiet stillness of the forest on a rainy day, the reflection of the city skyline in the puddles after a storm. For Olivia, these were the things that mattered. These were the things that deserved to be shared. She was selective about what she posted, though. Unlike some of her friends who shared every detail of their lives, Olivia kept the truly personal aspects of her life private. She posted enough to keep her followers engaged, but there was always a sense of distance, an invisible barrier between the world she showed online and the one she lived in. She was always conscious of how much she revealed, always careful to maintain a boundary between the public and the private. Her Instagram account, which had slowly gained a modest following, was a reflection of this philosophy. Each post told a story, but it was a story crafted with intention, designed to share beauty without giving too much away. One Sunday morning, Olivia sat on her balcony, a steaming mug of tea in hand as she watched the city come to life. The sun was just beginning to rise, casting a warm glow over the buildings. It was one of those mornings that made her feel at peace, at home in the world. She snapped a quick photo of the view, the golden light spilling over the rooftops, the trees gently swaying in the breeze. She had posted a similar photo before, but this one felt different. It felt more meaningful. She added a simple caption: "The quiet moments are the ones that stay with you the longest." With a few taps, the photo was live on her Instagram feed. At first, the response was typical. A few comments from friends, some likes from familiar faces, and then a couple of new followers who seemed to appreciate her aesthetic. Olivia had always been careful with her online presence, and her following was a tight-knit group of people who shared similar interests in art, nature, and photography. But as the day went on, Olivia started to notice something odd. One of the comments stood out to her. It was from someone she didn't recognize. The comment was simple enough. "I know that spot. I walk by it every morning on my way to work." She clicked on the profile. The account was sparse, just a few random pictures of city streets and landscapes with no personal information or details. It felt strangely impersonal. Yet there was something about the comment that made Olivia uneasy. It wasn't that the person had commented on her photo. It was the specificity of the comment. The way they knew the exact spot she had taken the photo from. She had never mentioned it in her post. She had never tagged the location. How could they know? At first, she shrugged it off. It was probably just a coincidence. But the next morning, the same account commented again. "I walked through that street last night. The lights were beautiful, but the streets were empty. It's so peaceful there after dark, isn't it?" This time, Olivia felt a shiver run down her spine. How did they know? She had never posted anything about walking through that street at night, let alone shared any details about the time of day she had taken the photo. The more she thought about it, the more the comments unsettled her. They weren't just comments on her photos, they were comments on her life, her routines, things she hadn't shared with anyone. Olivia decided to investigate the profile further. It was private, with only a few photos of various street scenes and nature shots. There were no personal details, no posts that would indicate where the person lived or anything about their life. But something about the way they interacted with her posts felt invasive. It wasn't just a casual comment on her photo. It was as if this person was trying to get to know her, to piece together the details of her life bit by bit. As the days went on, the comments became more frequent. They were no longer just about her photos, but about the things she had shared in passing. One comment referred to a post she had made months ago about a hike she had taken with her dog. Another about a coffee shop she frequented. It felt like this person was watching her closely, reading through her feed, picking up on the small details and using them to build an image of who she was. It wasn't just a follower. It was someone who was paying attention in a way that felt more like an invasion than admiration. Olivia decided to block the account, hoping that would be the end of it. But it wasn't. The messages kept coming. They weren't comments on her posts anymore. They were private messages sent directly to her inbox. They were the same as the comments, but more personal, more intimate. "I saw you at the market yesterday." One message said, "You were looking at the flowers. They were so bright, and the way you smiled, it made me happy to see someone so peaceful." Olivia froze. How did they know where she had been? She had not shared any details about going to the market. She hadn't posted any pictures from there. She had simply gone just as she always did. But somehow, this person knew. They knew where she was when she was there and how she looked. The messages didn't stop. They kept coming, each one more disturbing than the last. They were no longer just about the places she had been. They started to touch on the things she had never shared with anyone. Her favorite books, her fears, her hopes, things she kept close to her heart. It was as though this person had been watching her, not just on social media, but in real life. It was as though they had access to her most private thoughts, and they were using that knowledge to connect with her in a way that felt unnatural, even dangerous. Olivia couldn't shake the feeling that she was being watched. Every time she left her apartment, every time she went to the coffee shop or the market, she wondered if someone was following her, tracking her movements. She started to feel like a character in her own life, a character being watched and controlled by someone who knew everything about her. Finally, one evening, Olivia decided to take action. She went to her social media accounts and deleted every post, every photo, every detail she had ever shared. She blocked the person who had been messaging her, and she set all her privacy settings to the highest level. She even changed her phone number just in case. But the fear didn't go away. It lingered, a constant reminder that once you share something online, it's no longer yours to control. Once you let someone in, there's no telling how far they'll go to learn more about you. For Olivia, the lesson was simple. Not everything needs to be shared. Some moments, some parts of your life are sacred, meant only for you to enjoy. And the price of sharing too much might just be the loss of your peace. As we come closer to the end of our journey, our final story brings us face to face with the price we all pay for connection. In a world where everything is shared, it's easy to forget the cost of giving too much. Let's finish with this final tale of how the world of social media can feel like both a bridge and a barrier. Story 7. The Price of Connection. Mia had always prided herself on being someone who connected with others. A social butterfly by nature, she thrived in environments where communication flowed freely and interactions were constant. As a social media manager, her job was to connect brands with their audiences, and she did it well. Her days were filled with drafting posts, curating content, and building engagement for her clients, At night, she would relax by scrolling through her own social media, checking updates from friends and family, and sharing snippets of her personal life. Mia enjoyed the balance she had struck between her professional and personal lives. She was active on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, engaging with her followers and making sure her online presence reflected her genuine self. But Mia hadn't realized how much of herself she had already given away. It started with a post she shared one evening, a simple photo of her and a few friends at a rooftop bar in the city. The skyline stretched out before them, the lights of the buildings reflecting the dim glow of the sunset. It was a casual moment, but it felt special to Mia. She captioned it, "Nothing like a good night out with good friends." The photo was nothing extravagant, just a slice of her life, a simple moment she wanted to remember. The response was immediate. Her friends liked the photo, commented on how great they looked, and asked about the bar. Mia enjoyed the attention, the connection she had with others, even if it was through a screen. But what unsettled her was a comment from someone she didn't know. "I love that place. I see you all the time there." The comment was vague enough to be brushed off as harmless, but something about it made Mia pause. She didn't recognize the name attached to the profile, and the comment seemed a little too specific. She clicked on the profile, and it was like looking at a reflection of herself. The profile picture was a familiar cityscape, one she'd posted years ago. There were a few photos of parks, coffee shops, and some familiar landmarks around the city, all places Mia had visited. It was eerie how much this stranger seemed to know about her life, her routine, the places she spent her time. She shrugged it off as coincidence. Just another random comment from someone who had likely seen her post before. But the comments didn't stop. They kept coming, each one more detailed than the last. "I saw you at the new cafe on 5th Avenue yesterday. You always order the same drink. That's cute." Mia was taken aback. She had been to that cafe, yes, but she hadn't shared her plans with anyone. She had posted a picture from her visit, but she hadn't tagged the location. She felt a strange unease creeping up her spine. How could this person know what drink she had ordered down to the last detail? The comments kept coming. They grew more specific, more unsettling. "I noticed you walk your dog every morning around the block. You always wear that red jacket. It looks good on you, by the way." Mia stopped scrolling. She hadn't posted anything about walking her dog. She hadn't shared what she wore that morning. The comment made her feel exposed, vulnerable in a way she hadn't felt before. The stranger knew her routine, knew her favorite places, and now even the things she wore. Mia felt the need to take action. She blocked the person, changed her privacy settings, and tried to move on. But the feeling of being watched didn't go away. In fact, it grew stronger. She noticed that the person's comments weren't the only things that were starting to make her uncomfortable. Her feed was filled with suggestions, posts from people she didn't follow photos of, places she had been, stories about events she had attended, things she had never shared publicly. It was as though someone had access to her life, to everything she had posted and interacted with, and was using that information to create a narrative that felt too familiar, too personal. One evening, Mia received a direct message from the stranger. The message was short, but the words sent a chill down her spine. "I see you, Mia. I know more about you than you think." She froze. This was no longer just a case of someone leaving a few comments. This was something else. Something far more invasive. Mia's heart raced as she looked through the stranger's profile again, searching for something, anything that could explain what was happening. But the account was locked down, the information sparse, the posts cryptic, and She couldn't find any concrete answers, just more unsettling details that seemed to follow her every move. The next morning, Mia decided to take further action. She deleted her posts, erased her photos, and even removed some of her personal details. She changed her phone number, deleted her social media accounts, and locked down her privacy settings, but nothing seemed to work. The stranger's messages kept coming more frequent now, always referencing her latest activity, her latest post. "I saw you at the library today. I know you like to go there when you're feeling stressed. It's a good place to think, isn't it? I wonder what you're reading right now. Maybe I could help you find a good book." Mia felt trapped. The line between the digital world and reality had blurred, and now she was living in fear. Fear of the attention she had once sought and enjoyed. Fear of the consequences of sharing too much of opening up her life to strangers. She had always believed that the internet was a tool for connection, that it allowed people to share parts of themselves with others in a meaningful way. But now she was learning that connection could come at a dangerous price. The stranger's words haunted her every day. She couldn't escape them. The constant feeling of being watched followed her everywhere. She was no longer in control of her own life, her own privacy. It had been taken from her by someone who knew too much, who watched too closely, and who somehow had gained access to every detail of her existence. Mia decided to take one last step. She packed her things, moved to a new apartment, and started fresh. She had to. She couldn't live like this anymore, but even as she moved to a new place, even as she tried to rebuild her life, the fear lingered. The constant reminder that once something is shared online, it's out of your hands. Mia learned the hard way that attention, especially online attention, can be both a gift and a curse. The price of connection is sometimes too high, and once your life is out there, it's not easy to take it back. Now, as we reflect on the stories we've shared tonight, it's clear that the world of social media is a double-edged sword. We connect, but sometimes the price of that connection is too high to pay. Stay vigilant, protect your peace, and remember, sometimes the safest path is the one where we share the least. Until next time, take care. And there we have it. The stories we've shared tonight. Each one a reminder of the power of connection and how fragile it can be when we expose ourselves too freely. I hope these tales have made you think twice about what we share online, the people we trust, and the hidden risks that lurk just beyond the screen. Stay safe, stay aware, and remember, sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is protect your peace. Thanks for joining me tonight. Until next time, take care and stay safe.